Hey guys, I'm just Colonial here. Once again, we're going to be talking about the colonial regions again. So the thing we're going to be talking about here is the middle colonies this time. So hopefully you've been watching the other videos. This one's going to focus on the middle colonies. So and once again, here's a photo just to show you what the middle colonies look like. So there's the southern colonies, the middle colonies, and the New England colonies. Our focus today is going to be over the middle colonies. So let's talk about what differences in the middle colonies was between the New England and the southern colonies in the United States, or not the United States yet. We that hasn't happened just yet. So in the middle colonies, the states that are part of that are New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. So these are some highly populated areas. New England colonies was where a lot of people started to land. So you see a lot of big population boom. We're going to see a lot of differences and similarities between middle colonies with New England and the southern colonies. You're going to see some of those similarities, but they are different. Since they're in the middle, think about there's going to be kind of a melding between the other colonies here. We'll talk about why here in just a second. So a big thing that was happening, we always focus on agriculture because that was still a big part of the colonies and how people survived. So in New England, we had subsistence farming. In the southern colonies, we had big commercial plantations farming. They were making a lot of money off of that. Subsistence farming, they just make enough for their families. Middle colonies was a little mixture of both. You had some subsistence farming that was happening where people were just making for their families. You had a little bit of commercial farming, maybe down in like Pennsylvania area. But they were doing staple crops. So things that you need to have in order to survive on these colonies, right? So crops that were a big part of the middle colonies were wheat, barley, oats, and corn. A little bit longer of a growing season in these middle colonies. Therefore, they're able to grow a little bit different kind of food than in the New England colonies, which was a much shorter growing season, especially towards Pennsylvania, that area that's right in the climate zone where you want to see a lot of good things. So if you think about the climate zone, we talked about this back in sixth grade. So Dr. Cobb was out. Steve, we talked about go across the latitude line. The climate is the same in those areas. So you think about going west in the United States today, Pennsylvania is in the same kind of line of like Iowa and South Dakota and Nebraska, those areas. So if you think about a lot of things, people think Iowa, they think corn, right? Or Nebraska, they're the Corn Huskers. That's their university's name. So that corn was a big part of that. And Pennsylvania's on that same kind of latitude line, so you see them be able to grow those crops. So staple crops were a big part of that in order to sustain and survive, where these are the things that you need to have: wheat, barley, oats, and corn. Another big difference between these other areas was that the middle colonies was where you see a lot of craftsmen and merchant traders coming in. These cities like New York and others, New Jersey, those kind of areas, they had big ports. So merchants, that's where they traded and sent goods out and things like that. We weren't having that happen in New England colonies. Maybe Boston would probably be the big one in Massachusetts, where you had a lot of the big bustly kind of things happening. But these middle colonies is where you see a lot of the craftsmen, like blacksmiths and gunsmiths and silversmiths and all those types of people really laying down and making different kind of things, right? Blacksmith makes things like nails and anything that can be made of metal. You have gunsmiths making guns and repairing guns, all those kind of things that people need in these colonies. So they kind of focused in on the middle colonies. You still had some up in the New England colonies and in the southern colonies as well. But in the middle colonies is where you see a lot of the master craftsmen and things like that there. A lot of people came here to get jobs as apprentices, as a blacksmith, as a silversmith, as a gunsmith in the middle colonies for masters there. A lot of these people that were masters craftsmen were not getting enough business, I could just say, in Europe and in England. So they're deciding, hey, you know what? Let's go over to here where we'll be the only ones there and we can make a lot more money. And that's what happened. So you have that happening. Slavery was still a part of the middle colonies as well. It was still a part of the New England colonies, just in a different way. New England colonies was more of the slavery that was happening within the household, where a lot of, let's talk about plantations, did not exist in New England very often because of the growing season. So you have more slavery happening within the house as servants and maids and that kind of thing there. Middle colonies was a mixture of the two. We talk about the main part, we think about slavery in the South. We had the big plantations with lots of slaves there. Middle colonies was a mixture. You had slaves that were working on farms. You had slaves that were working in homes. It was kind of a mixture of the two there. So you see, slavery was still part of it. There was a demand because Native Americans, they couldn't force them into labor. The slave trade was starting to happen more and more often. And so you see a lot more slavery coming into these middle colonies as well. Religion was still a big part of the middle colonies. Like we said, there's a mixture here when we talk about the reasons why these colonies came together, and middle colonies were kind of a mixture of both the southern and New England colonies. So religious freedom was still a big part of the middle colonies, just like it was in New England. That's why a lot of people came over to New England colonies, was to stop being persecuted for their religion so they can have that freedom. Pennsylvania is one of those colonies in the middle colonies that was founded on religious freedom. You have William Penn right there, you see. He's a founder of Pennsylvania. If you ever seen Quaker Oats box or what cylinder, I don't know what you call it, whatever they have there, he is the face of Quaker Oats. I highly suggest that you go to our website and watch the Who's history on William Penn. Probably one of my favorite ones that we've done. So you can get a little bit more about William Penn and kind of what he was known for as a Quaker. So Quaker is the name of the religious group that is founded in Pennsylvania. That's where they started going there. All the other English colonies did not like the Quakers. They had a much different kind of thought about how they felt about things. They practiced religious toleration, which a lot of people believed, but they also wanted to have a good relationship with Native Americans, which, especially in the southern colonies, not a lot of people wanted that. They wanted to take over their land. They were trying to have toleration with that. Also, anyone that was a dissenter, someone that was against anyone, they would bring them in with open arms. So that's why I kind of see a lot of people not liking the Quakers too much. So religion was still a big part of the middle colonies. You can see there the breakdown, the pie chart there in the bottom left. You see Quakers made up about 17% of the people in the middle colonies. And then you have Presbyterians being the majority at 32%. So you can see all those things there. Anglicans, 15%, Lutheran, 12%, Baptists at 11%. So you can kind of see the breakdown. It's kind of a hodgepodge there in New England. You have mostly Puritan people, which is Anglican there, and some Presbyterian as well. But middle colonies, you kind of see that big mixture happening there. So why did they come to the middle colonies? So it's just kind of wrapping up reason why people came over to the middle colonies. Religious freedom was a big part of it. We talked about just with William Penn, the Quakers. Also, jobs and money. Jobs were a big thing. People in England were not finding jobs. Hey, here's a great opportunity. Why don't you go to the New World and you find a new job, things like that. So people did that, getting more money and getting some more wealth there. A lot of blacksmiths and people that could not get work in England came over here where they could find tons of work, because you didn't want to try to get supplies from England. You don't know when that would come back, right? It's like a long journey to get there. Also, climate was a little bit better than the New England colonies. So they had better soil, longer growing seasons. So you see people start settling down there where they can farm, have agriculture. And then you also have the industry part, the urban areas in those towns with big port cities like New York City being a major kind of hub for merchants to trade goods and things like that. So middle colonies is kind of the Goldilocks kind of thing, right? Just right in the middle, where you see the differences between New England and southern colonies kind of coming together there. You can see in our chart the population breakdown of people. You had 39% English, which is the majority, but then you also notice you have a lot of different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds. You have German, you have Dutch, you have Scots and Irish, you have Welsh, you have Swiss, you have French, and then you have the African population, which we talked about earlier, where you had the slave labor with the slaves that were in the houses and the slaves that were working on farms as well. So you can see the middle colonies was a kind of a what we call melting pot, where it had a lot of different ethnic backgrounds coming together in one place. So that's a big difference that you see with the middle colonies, is that population diversity among the other colonies in the New England and the southern colonies. All right, so there is your video about the middle colonies. So we just recapped what the middle colonies were about. If you have any questions, make sure you go back and look at it. All right, I'll see you all later.